In a moment, we'll start collecting clues as to the whys, the whats, and the wheres.
And I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed.
Can you hear that? We will not end the nightmare, we'll only exploit it.
Once thought dead, the lab leak theory is making a comeback, and this time it's armed with a CIA report. How will this fresh evidence reshape the debate around a theory that refuses to die? Next, we delve into the world of psychic phenomena. Are these experiences nothing more than tricks of the mind? Or do some people possess abilities that defy explanation? We'll take a deep look at one case where a psychic investigator is credited with finding a missing man. And in our Off-Normal segment, we examine a chilling case from North Texas, a woman who claims she encountered the devil at her doorstep. Her account has left her deeply unsettled, and we'll unpack the details at the end of the show. I'm your host, Fiasco Jones. Welcome to Oddnormal's What in the Weird, the show that believes in ghosts but has never seen one itself. I'm joined by my co-host, Cold Coffee, who has returned from his quest to the inner realms of self and discovered that only his cat ever noticed he was gone. Want to hear something strange?
I did something different here.
Do you keep up with the conspiracy theories?
Only when I talk to you, amazingly.
Oh, that's strange.
I mean, they're always interesting. I mean, there seems to be so many. I guess it's like, what flavor of conspiracy stories are we talking about today? I mean, I like to hear them, but do I go out of my way to try to find more and more? No, but am I amazed by the variety of them out there? Of course.
You're missing out. You need to cultivate these. You need to go out and find them.
But then it roots in your brain. And then you start thinking they're real. And then you just live your life amongst conspiracy theories.
What a great segue. Because that's the funny thing, is that some of them turn out to be real. Scary. So conspiracy fans were rewarded with a big victory recently. Late last month, the Central Intelligence Agency assessed that the COVID-19 pandemic likely originated from a laboratory incident, a conclusion held with low confidence. This aligns with earlier positions from the Federal Bureau or from the FBI and the Department of Energy, which also supported the lab leak theory with varying degrees of confidence. The origins of COVID have been debated since its emergence in Wuhan, China in late 2019. Two primary hypotheses have been considered: a natural spillover from animals to humans and an accidental release from a laboratory, such as the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Coincidence, I think.
Accident?
Right. And so today, obviously, the government, the CIA, is kind of tipping the scales in favor of lab leak. And I have to say, as a crazy person who indulges in the conspiracy theories, I'm quite happy because I never liked the natural spillover hypothesis. It felt that's the one that sounds like conspiracy. You're telling me that the poorly secured Wuhan virology lab has nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
And it just so happens like next door. Oh yeah, it's them. It's the pangolins in the wet market. That they're the cause. Because that makes sense. I don't know. Are you familiar with the lab leak theory?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think out of all the things out there, that it's the most plausible one. I mean, like, it's the is it Occam's razor?
Yes, Occam's razor.
The simplest explanation more than likely is the right explanation. Because when you think about, is it this random, just science fiction movie where something in a wet market is what started? It just sounds like that's just too unrealistic. But when you think about something getting away from a actual lab that is studying nasty viruses, like, of course.
And not only were they studying them, they were doing a thing called gain of function research. I don't know if you're familiar with that term.
That I do not know.
Yeah. So gain of function research is when you take, let's say, a flu virus. And a flu virus that's just flying around all over the place, and then you say, hey, what can we make this more lethal? And so they go in and they start, messing with its genetic code, and like they make it more lethal. They can make it, airborne. They can make it survive in hosts that aren't naturally its hosts. And they do this. The philosophy behind it is that you make these deadly things because, especially viruses, they evolve very, very quickly. So they think, well, we're just getting ahead of evolution, so we will make the thing that kills us so
Quicker.
that we can
We're gonna make it sooner.
so we're just gonna just push things along. These are the real
These people need to find better friends. They need to get laid more. Find a damn hobby that doesn't involve the ending of civilization.
that would be nice. But I mean, you could almost say that for a lot of this cutting edge science, because a lot of it, this is a specific, but I mean, people say that like in CERN, they're going to create a black hole and kill us all. People who work at CERN is like, don't worry about it. It's not going to happen. But we don't know. I'm not a quantum scientist guy, and I just have to take their word for it. If they say we're not making black holes to kill each other, to kill us off, I'm like, I guess. I mean, there's that adage when they were in the Manhattan Project making the nuclear bomb, the first atomic bomb, and there was a faction in the group that's like, we shouldn't do this because according to our maths, the minute you detonate that, there will be a chain reaction, but it will never stop. It'll just burn over the world. And Oppenheimer's like, no, my math's better than yours. I'm willing to take the risk. And they lit it off, and it worked out. So again, it's kind of one of those things. And I feel like the lab leak kind of is it the theory that of the bad math, or is it the actual no, this is the actual answer? I don't know, but to me it is always rung true, just because everything has fit into place. I will say, in defense, all the people who are groaning right now and they're like, oh God, this conspiracy bastard, what is he doing? I will concede, because this is the weird thing, is that in September of 2024, there was a paper published in Nature that was Nature's a peer-reviewed journal. So that means basically they got all this corroborating evidence from independent researchers that says, no, it's a spillover event. They had the test, they did their independent studies, and it came out, it's spillover. So it is interesting that the CIA, and mind you, this report, it did come out on Trump's watch, but it had been in the CIA, within the CIA vaults during the Biden years, and they just kind of sat on it. And so it was it because they're like, okay, we're convinced now. I guess the CIA, they weren't, because the report still says, no, we still think lab leak, but science has weighed in and said, no, absolutely not. It is a spillover event. And I tell them, you don't know what you're talking about. I do.
Well, I mean, I think there's still, I can see why they wanted to bury it, because there's all these people, that say that, the U.S. government was helping to fund a lot of these similar sort of labs in other parts of the world. A lot of people are freaking about Ukraine. That's why the U.S. wanted to fund Ukraine, because they didn't want Russia to go in there and find these labs that the U.S. has funded over there. So it's kind of like one of these things where, more people, our government, I think at times is just like, let's just not let people see what's here, because it's just going to put eyeballs on something else that we don't want them to think about and something they don't want to talk about. And besides, at this point, all those CIA people and FBI people are all losing their jobs anyways. They're not there at the office anymore. So, they might as well take the paperwork with them when they leave and then just publish it. That's a whole nother side crazy shit that's going on. What's happening right now with Elon and Doge, or Howard? Do we actually say Doge, or do we say the DOGE? I
think everyone just says Doge, because why not? We live in the worst.
Wasn't
reality.
there a Doge coin, like that crypto coin that was a dog?
Well, that's why do you not follow this? This is why everything's Doge, because that dipshit, like, he just loves his memes.
He's so ridiculous.
He bought the Doge coin.
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, we'll make this Doge too, because it's so funny and
it's
hilarious.
The Department of Government Efficiency. Yeah. It's so scary and ridiculous what's going on right now. Like, I'm surprised more challenges haven't stepped up, but we're getting off topic about it, but yeah, I mean, like, as
the
for
other show.
a lab, yeah, that's the other show. But as for it being, the lab leak and why the government wouldn't want to announce it, I think if anything else, people realize that this. I think people will start to understand that labs like this are not a unique situation. I think a lot of people thought of this China, oh, I can't believe that there's this lab that studies this sort of thing. Like, this shit happens. It's seemingly more that we start to find out in all kinds of places all around the world. I don't think our government wants our civilians to understand that they take part in that stuff.
And the other thing too, how this became such a political hot potato. I'm going to play a little clip here, kind of like refocusing things, because yes, Trump got a little bit of victory lap, because yeah, you'll hear.
Several years ago, when I was working in this press shop and President Trump would take to this podium to brief the American people on COVID-19, he suggested that COVID very well may have came from a lab in Wuhan, China. And many members in this very room mocked him for that, said he was spewing conspiracy theories. He was not. We now know that to be the confirmable truth. It took many years for it to come out, but the president was right in this instance.
She's batshit crazy.
Of course. But at the same time, it's the broken.
I wonder
clock.
how long she lasts, but she'll
last forever, probably. I mean,
probably.
Kayleigh McEnany was crap, and she's lasted forever too. Just in the case of like nomenclature here, because I think the word conspiracy theory is used way too often about too many things, and it's derisive. I always thought like the idea of an outsider theory is much better in some cases, because there are certain things, like your story that you're going to come up with later is very complex, and just reading around it and giving even if you gave like several weeks to it, you wouldn't be an expert in any of these fields, and you wouldn't be able to but you probably could like draw some conclusions, or at least just have questions, and those questions could lead you to an interesting guess. And that's kind of what I think lab leak is, because I'm obviously going to say I had to defer to the peer reviewed research and say, well, okay, it probably is spillover, but I do think that there's this huge body of evidence over here that says that's just screaming at me saying, I don't know, bro. I don't know. I think I could be the real answer. And so that's why I think it's more of an outsider theory, because I'm an outsider. I don't know these things. It's fairly impenetrable, because I'm not going to learn about gain of function research the way a actual scientist will.
There's still time. Time.
but in this kind of like in that vagueness, in that outsider world, because we're all outsiders other than the people that are actually inside, it became like a political football. So everyone's like, I'm right based on which color they're wearing, what color t-shirt they're wearing. And that's where I thought things got really interesting in during the COVID days, 2020, because I mean, Trump's a dipshit, right? He says dumb shit, but he says this one thing and it becomes instantly, people are like, forget about it. He's an idiot. He's just trying to do that because he's a racist. Discount it. It's a racist theory. And I'm like, but like I don't think any race thing, maybe in his mind, sure. Maybe in his mind it was, but then that became like the driving narrative, and everyone's like, no, you discount it. I'm like, can we really just discount the whole thing because he said it? And
I think that's probably it. He threw the way he was saying it. There was like, it wasn't like coming from a point of, we know things that, there's science happening over there. It was like, he didn't say the words, but he was like, oh, those angry Chinamen, I know they're up to something. It was just his rhetoric, the way the way he said it, that it gave off the impression like, oh, these evil people over here, these evil types of people, as opposed to, but that's because that's how he says everything.
Right.
So it's easy. It's so easy just to assume that what he says is coming from a place of anger or hatred a lot of times, where so sometimes people have to kind of remind themselves, like, don't turn your ears off just yet. Give it a chance, let it marinate, and maybe he'll actually say something that's has some merit in there. It's just he's so used to throwing so many wild sort of theories against the wall that people tend to stop paying attention because they are so outlandish. And there is a lot of like hate and a lot of these messages and stuff. But, even with that, you can't just discount them, because there are points that just, unfortunately, it's filtering through
that's the
a
catch.
person that, tends to not
Well, you have
let
to
things water through.
Yeah, you have to filter the diarrhea that comes spilling out of him, and that's also the other thing too. Anything he says is tainted. He taints everything that he says. So people are just like have an aversion for it, and I get it. But I also understand that the lab leak thing is definitely in that outsider conspiracy, whatever.
I mean, it certainly is, but I mean, honestly, it boils down to anything where there's a human element. Things can happen. You could have the best security, you could have the best means of everything, and everything is locked down. But as long as everything isn't run by an AI simulation and there are humans, there is room for error, and there is room for mischievous things, and there's rooms for, accidents to happen. So, anything that has humans involved can have,
big question mark. There's like, but, but yeah. A Texas psychic has become the talk of the town after a video featured on a local television station shows her allegedly pinpointing the exact location where a missing man was later found. In a case that sounds straight out of a paranormal thriller, family members and even some local officials are crediting her uncanny visions with breaking a baffling disappearance that stumped conventional investigators. The footage captures her in full psychic mode, describing eerie, specific details of the area long before any physical evidence was uncovered. Skeptics, of course, dismiss the claim as coincidence and wishful thinking, while believers argue it's a modern miracle in a field where logic often falls short. Despite all the buzz, no conclusions have emerged since the report. The case remains a bit of an enigma. She did find the psychic did find a missing man. In fact, this is the news report, a little clip from the news report, just kind of putting a few things in perspective.
Andrea says she kept receiving messages on her way home.
I kept hearing mentally, follow the birds.
She followed birds she saw through a greenway belt, leading her to White.
I found him.
Who had been missing for 3 days and 2 nights. White had minor injuries and was taken to the hospital where he made a full recovery. Dia says she believes he may have not made it another night.
So a little background there is that
she dropped him off there 3 days prior.
Yeah, she kidnapped him. She wants to start her own.
Like, where did I leave him? Birds, help me.
I mean, that's the thing is that like I feel like when you are skeptical, those are the places you have to go. Is like, well, he didn't go missing.
She did it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I love the idea that if she didn't, I mean, you see this often in like TV shows. You'll see cop shows where somebody has like a psychic. I love that if there's a potential, why not? I mean, like, I do believe that, we do have sort of connections and people think outside of the body, and whatever, I know I talked with you before about, playing music and having this sort of communication, with bandmates sort of just by feeling and sort of like a thought process. I swear it felt like we were sending things out of our head. Who knows? People, I think, are in tune to those things, and people can sense certain things. She made it sound like it was a full-on dialogue in her head, like, look for the birds, instead of like a gut feeling or, I'd be interesting to hear, did it sound like a different voice, or was it just like our thought patterns? Like, when you think an idea, when you think of something in your head, does it have a voice to it? Does it have a certain, or is it just your own voice or your own thought? Is there even think of like a voice? So when she says it was telling me follow the birds, like, I'm wondering, like, is just the thought was telling you, or did she hear something,
Well, it probably will not surprise you to know that hers is much more of a spiritual, religious.
Find the birds. Find the birds.
I mean, she the way she, I guess, taps into her psychic ability is that she essentially like prays to the angel, the archangel Michael. So, and that could just be. I mean, who knows if it's a religious.
Did she say she was driving though?
No, so let me back up. So what happens is this elderly man who has cognitive impairments. He left his care facility. The caregiver, I guess, posted to the community saying, "Help me, help me, help me," and then she received this call from this woman who claimed that she's psychic, and she said that she could probably help, and the caregiver at that point was like, I'll take it. Whatever you got. The cops are searching. Everyone's searching. If you're a psychic, you can say, sure, why not? So they set up a meeting. So I'll meet you on like Sunday, and we can then try to like channel or whatever. And that's when you get that little clip where she says, she was on the way to the meeting, to the meetup with the woman, and she started hearing those like voices.
Gotcha.
And which sounds very much like, to any religious folks who think they, like Mormons have they can hear the God. All the prophets can speak directly to God, and He speaks to them. I mean, that's pretty universal in a lot of religions where, the spirits talk to people. So that seems like what's happening here. Or it's just her psychic intuition. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so she's walking down. She says, "Here, follow the birds." From something tells her she'd probably say it's the Archangel Michael. And yeah, she just sees this guy just like laying by a pile, and she's shooting it with her phone. And she then calls everyone else, calls the authorities, and calls the caregiver, and they all show up, and they pick him up, and he was inches from death, and she saved his life. So yeah, that to explain that, you could say she clearly kidnapped him, dumped him in a field, and then came back later to take all the credit. Or she drove by and she had seen him already there, and then when she saw the post, she just said, "Oh, this is a great opportunity to sell my business as a psychic." Or
so her psychic power was based upon like her ability to interact with the who was it?
Yeah, the Archangel Michael. Yeah.
So is it a religious power that she has, or is it a psychic power? Like she only gets it from him?
And that's the thing. Once you get into the world of the paranormal, I mean, I don't know how does it function? Is it the actual angel Michael speaking to her, or is she essentially using that to focus her ability? Like because she had like a crystal in her hand and like a rosary, and it seemed like that was important to like kickstart things.
Yeah.
And
I guess that's part of her process, I imagine. Because when I think of people having like psychic abilities or whatever, I don't often hear that being attuned to a religious angle or something along the line, like an angel's helping me or whatever. I hear that a lot. Tuned or whatever,
It's actually quite common because that's the thing is that like lots of folks experience these abilities, but they also are super Christians.
Yeah.
And it spooks them out to think of it as the occult and think that this is magic or this is coming from the devil. So let's reorganize this and say, oh no, these are angels speaking to me.
Yeah. Let's put it in a box that I can understand.
Right.
And that makes sense to their yeah.
And I mean, that's could be what's going on.
I think that's it. When you explain it like that, that makes a lot more sense, because if not, they would literally could think that they're going crazy, or that why am I seeing these things? Why am I hearing these things? But if they could attribute to my beliefs, then it's like, okay, then it's okay. Like it's all right. I'm being spoken to by God or his minions. It's not that I'm in tune to something else, because then if it is, then you're sort of questioning everything else, if it doesn't fit. But if you could put it in that box, then it makes it okay for you.
And you're more likely to share that with other people, rather than be afraid of it and try to hide it. You're more likely to say, no, I'll share this with you because this is a holy thing. This is a sacred ability that I have. And so, yeah. So however people, get around to doing it, that's fine. In fact, I would say this is a bit of pretty much everything we call the occult, all the people who originally kind of foster these things didn't think of them as Satanists. Like, like they were all very holy people. And a lot of like magical ritual invokes God, and it has, like the angels and stuff. There is the left-hand path that, does doing some demonology in there, and then tries to raise demons for like mostly fortune seeking type things, like buried treasure. That's what it is. They're looking for buried treasure. That's a big one. Or love and stuff like that. But a lot of it, most of it, is a bunch of God people asking God to like do God stuff. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, so it's magic, it's the occult, but it's also like super God stuff. I don't know.
Super God stuff.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, that's not very heavy metal.
Yeah. It's not at all.
Yeah, it's like, oh wow, okay, so where's the Satan? No, there's only God here.
No, it's good stuff. Good stuff. Not this.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that's probably more of the same here, but also, I mean,
still, it's a cool story. I mean, like,
yeah,
the fact that if regardless of how it came to be, she was able to save somebody. So whatever that worked through her, or used her as a vessel for this particular one, or whatever mechanism that she has, hopefully she goes on to save some other people.
And that isn't that
she's
the
just
thing,
on
though?
the elderly patrol.
Yeah,
she's just weirdly in tune to lost elderly. That's her only psychic ability.
And from what we can tell from past experience, she probably will never, ever, 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 ever have this again in this such a spectacular way. It's like a one-off, and that means, okay, then it practically didn't happen for a lot of people, because it becomes random. It just happened this time. I'm sure small things like this happen to her all the time, but something this spectacular will probably never happen to her again. She probably will start a psychic investigator company, and typically they're just like this. They have one great moment of spectacular, like, wow, how did that happen? And then they just fall off, for whatever reason. And that's essentially why we still have technology, because maybe these things are real, but they're just unreliable. There's a reason why we have GPS instead of remote viewers in the military, because yes, the remote viewers in the Stargate program were doing spooky stuff, but it was really only meaningful in hindsight when they actually, were able to get to the location and see the data and say, oh, did you look at this? Look how these match up. This is spooky. But we didn't know what any of this meant prior to this part. So it's like, oh, okay, well, we're going to start GPS instead, because that's just far more reliable. You can you can do it on your phone. But it still begs the question, like, how are you able to write? How are these connections being able to be made without the GPS, and how is this woman, she just happened to guess and stumble upon the guy? Sure. That's a very reasonable thing, is that she just wanted to help.
Right place, right time.
Right. And who knows, that could be, or she was guided there, through some other strange power that we don't have any idea about. And it works randomly, and it just, who knows? Maybe not super randomly. Maybe, like I said, she probably has these experiences all the time in very small, unprofound ways. Except this time, it really fucking exploded, and it's like,
there's a big payoff. Yeah.
So, I don't know. To me, I don't know. These fascinate me, but I also it also kind of, I try to stay grounded as much as a crazy person like I can stay grounded. To say, okay, well, there's a reason why we have the technology we have. It's because even if these things are happening, it's spooky and weird and interesting, but it's also very unreliable. I'm just like, all right, well, but who knows? Until someone figure out a way to really hone in on what it is, and then they monetize it, and then it becomes not spooky. Like electricity for the longest time was seen as one of these bizarre, like, whoa, it's practically magic. You hear all these stories about Tesla in Colorado Springs and being a weirdo up there with like electrical bolts flying around him. And the stories that they say in those early days about him make him sound like a goddamn magician. But now, because we've harnessed electricity and we've really just hammered the shit out of it, we know everything about it. It's just a thing. It just lights our rooms. We don't think about it. It's just the mundane, but it truly is like a bizarre, weird thing that we've just harnessed and bridled and made it our workhorse.
Oh, that's right. We're not supposed to cuss as much. I'm sorry. I think I already probably ruined that on the show.
I think I already did too. I was like, I'm trying to be a little more cognizant of it.
And does this sound weird, or is this show that I'm a bad person? Like when we like the fact that people with psychic abilities and people are able to find things like this. I love the stories. And then why is it just me? Maybe I'm a bad person. When I start hearing people attribute to like a religious side of something, I immediately am just like, okay, now I don't care anymore, because now you're just putting it off on like, oh, okay, some angel's working through. I thought it was cooler when you just had a psychic ability. Something was working through you. I like the mystery of it better, instead of when somebody wants to immediately give it to some power of God or something like that. I'm like, come on, keep it mysterious. Don't put a title on it that I already don't really jive with. Maybe that's the atheist in me, or the agnostic. I'm just like, it was cooler when you didn't say that,
Well, that's the thing. That's just, you just have a hostility towards religion.
I think so.
Here's the thing. I guess you're the opposite of what I always say to the religionists. And like I said about the occult, is that for people to actually believe in an all-seeing God, to believe in miracles, to believe in angels, to believe in all these other things, it seems arbitrary to then say, okay, now but aliens can't be a part of it, or that magic, like ritual magic, can't exist. No, I think you pretty much have to say, okay, it all exists, and just because it's religious. You can't just say like it stops because they think it's religious. It continues on, because that's still an experience that people are having that does not cohere to the materialist universe. People are having these communications with gods or angels or whatever. Maybe it's not exactly that. Maybe it is a strange, eldritch intelligence on the other side of the parallel universe. Who knows? But they're experiencing these things, and they translate it as religion.
Yeah.
Or it's just a heritage from. This is my deep dive, by the way, on some of this. I was just thinking about this the other day. It does kind of come back to the simulation. Is that we are a simulation? We have proof of it from ancient times, because all the wacky stuff that they were saying that they were seeing, they were communicating with gods. They were the things in the sky were completely different. The monsters were everywhere. That's when we were starting, like the jelly that was making us like intelligence was really porous, and things are just flip flopping all over there. And they were probably talking to gods. They were the controllers. They were prompting us, saying, "Okay, do this. This is how you make fire. This is how you do." And just to get it moving, like to push the rock down the hill, you have to tell them something. You have to do something. Yeah, there has to be an interaction, and that gets interpreted as gods. That's why we don't hear the gods anymore, because their job is done. We're now somewhere, I would say, in either the latter days of the simulation, or we're right in the middle of the simulation. You can't really tell. But the fact that we do have psychics, and we see aliens, and that we see Bigfoot, and people are having weird experiences, but they're inconsistent. They're like the fading memories. It just shows that's probably more proof that we're in the middle, or closer to the beginning of the simulation rather than the end, because at that point it will be just all those things will have burnt away. We won't have any more of these remnants of our old past, or our old weird gooey past. We'll just eventually become like normal humans. We won't have any superstitions, and that's where we're going to, right? That's where science is pushing us is to lose the superstitions, become these pure materialistic creatures, and head toward the prompt. Fulfill the prompt. That's what we're doing. We're fulfilling the prompt, and so the fact that we can still see these people and they have these experiences. Of course, they're random or random, maybe not random, but they're inconsistent. And they're not reliable in the sense of like that science would give them any merit. Shows we're just kind of in the middle, or who knows, or the early days, but we're still somewhere. We're not near the end of the simulation. The super intelligence is probably not the complete end of the simulation. We probably still have to push along further and further and further. So I don't know. That was a weird thing I was thinking about the other day.
Yeah, no, well, it's funny because, now it puts more in I've always been one. I agree with, like, I always feel like in energies, like we are at the end of the day, we're boiled down. We're energy, and our bodies move around and stuff. And when we're dead, our energy goes back into the world. It's out there, which makes a lot more sense if we are a simulation, because simulation runs off this said energy, and we're just stuff that we're just taking in, So I now that when people always get sick, you have the people that are like, I'm sending you prayers. I'm always like, I'm sending you some healing energy. I'm going to send you whatever. That's what I send towards whatever. I've never really thought about it much, because I'm like, maybe inherently I just agree that we're in a simulation, because everything I believe, everything about, like, when you're sending good vibes to somebody, that's a form of energy. When you're feeling bad vibes from somebody, you're feeling the bad energy from them. Because there's, like, even when you think of things like that, when somebody's like, man, I'm getting bad vibes from somebody, what does that equate to when you're feeling bad vibes? You're sensing something, which is a shift in, like, the energy around you or whatever. We're all just weirdos like that. So when I think of psychics and I think of people that do that sort of stuff, they're in tune to different energies and things that are going on, but that's how I find that more fun to explain stuff as opposed to the other little things. But yeah, maybe inherently I've, without even realizing it, think that we do live in a simulation. I've never said that because it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it's like, if you already believe in, like, energies and other stuff, simulation makes more sense, because since a computer program is based and it needs energy to run, and we're just little random data bits of energy in the simulation.
In Carrollton, Texas, a homeowner's Ring doorbell camera captured a chilling encounter. A person in a red horned devil mask approached the doorstep holding a sign referencing a Bible verse about the end times. The unsettling footage shows the individual pretending to knock before leaving. Authorities are treating this as an isolated incident, but urge residents to remain vigilant. No further developments have emerged since the initial report. For a closer look at the footage, I will show you this. Here we go. So this is kind of, I hope, hold on to your butts, cold coffee. This is gonna break you. This is the most chilling thing you've ever seen.
She says she saw a masked person in her driveway. The person walked through the side yard to her front door.
Person popped up on the video with that goat's mask on, and they were approaching my door.
She noticed the person pretended to knock and was holding a sign with a Bible verse on it.
It's about the end times. It's about Judgment Day. I freaked out.
So what would you do if you're now? So she was out. She was not at home when this happened. She was out somewhere else with her husband. And then, she started getting notifications from her Ring doorbell. And then she's like, oh, what's this? What would your reaction be if, you saw?
Well, if I was home, I would arm myself and open up the door and be like, yo, motherfucker, let's talk. Sean Strickland style. But if I was out and about and I saw that, I'd be a little freaked out. That's just weird. It's just super, super weird. I don't know if I'd be more scared. I would immediately just think somebody's obviously out playing a prank and doing whatever. They knew that she had a ring thing, so they specifically walked over to show the ring, which makes you think that he's either been to that house before to know, like, who goes over to a house aiming something towards a ring thing if you didn't know that it was there. You know, it could have just been purely lucky. Maybe he tried 3 different houses already and he just went to each one or whatever. But he didn't want to actually knock on the door because he didn't want an interaction. He just wanted the ring footage of him going up to it. So maybe, now I'm jumping way too far into it, but I mean, like, the skeptic side of me is like, guy probably been by there. Maybe he's like a UPS driver. And he's like, I'm going to just go back and mess with some people or whatever. But to go up to a place, pointing a thing, specifically knowing that there's cameras there, that person's been by that place before, and just to mess with her. But as for if it's a sign of the times, I think it's just somebody probably playing a trick. But for me, I would be hugely irate. And if I was at home, I would be well armed at that moment, and I'd want some answers from old goat faced.
Yeah, FYI, any goat masked people. Cold coffee.
I don't have a ring. I don't have a ring.
Why don't knock at his door after midnight? Cold coffee is a grumpy armed person.
I believe in my Second Amendment rights, as everyone in Texas probably does too. Like, that's pretty risky. Like, if I think of a state that people tend to protect their house with weapons, I'm thinking Texas.
Well, and that's the other thing too, though. That's kind of if you think about it, a little more eerie, because what if it is target? Like, it was a targeted thing that they knew, maybe they knew she was gone, and they decided to just freak her out, but
and leave a weird, scary video, or
yeah, and that also then has to make you wonder, like, okay, if I'm targeted for that, could this be a one-off thing where or is this like, are they trying to send a message? And they were holding a sign with a message on it, from a very long passage in the book of Revelation, about essentially Satan rising. One, it's Satan being imprisoned in the pit, and then rising up after 1,000 years to take war on the saints, and then, of course, being defeated by God, and then a new Jerusalem rises up. It actually ends on actual Judgment Day. The verse ends with Judgment Day of all the dead rising up from the sea, from hell, from heaven, or from the dirt.
See, now we're talking again. Now this is the metal part of the show. This is the metal part of the episode.
Here's an actual excerpt from the passage.
And when the 1,000 years are ended, Satan will be released from his prison, and will come out to deceive the nations that are at the 4 corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them for battle. Their number is like the sand of the sea. And they marched up over the broad plain of the earth, and surrounded the camp of the saints and the beloved city.
I love that you found this audio to go along with it. That's so good. As soon as it started playing, I was like, yes, let's go.
Yeah, get a little color in there, Yeah.
I mean, so was this woman a highly religious woman? I mean, she's with her husband, so it's a married couple. So it wasn't like they were just going to pick on like a woman or whatever, trying to scare a particular woman or something. But I tend to wonder if she is highly religious, then it makes it even feel more targeted, like they knew what they were doing. Like, if somebody came to my house with a Bible scripture on a thing, I'd be like, what does that even mean?
Right.
Like, bro, I'm too lazy to go look that up. Like, just say what you're trying to say.
Right. I don't need to play some weird, like, game of Clue. Let's just
spit it out, go ahead.
Yeah. I gotta work on a simulation story that I'm a butcher for my podcast. I don't have time for this.
I ain't got time for this. I gotta cram some shit.
I mean, again, I think it gets back down to the wicked part of me. It wants this to actually have a part 2, part 3, part 4, where
of the goat head coming back.
Yeah, or as the story develops, and then menaces her, and the incidents become more and more crazy and dire.
And if it shows up around town and other places, then it'd be interesting. Then I'm like, okay, now we're on to something, because this just sounds like, initially, like, as freaky as it is to show up on a screen, which you think of, like, when you're going back and watching Ring videos, you're seeing packages get delivered, you're seeing maybe a neighbor walking by your house, but to see somebody in a devil mask holding some scripture, you know, you're like, all right, that's not normal. You know, you're immediately going to start whatever. But if it starts showing up around town, then I'll be intrigued. Then I'll think like, okay, obviously it's there's a movement or there's something. But if it's just a one-off, it's just like, somebody's just probably playing the games. Like, I can't be scared about that or whatever.
I really wish that, I mean, there probably was no connection. You're probably right. Absolutely right. It was just some random thing where this guy just,
too much time on his hands, just want to play around.
Put the mask on, walked around the street looking for a ring, like any house with a ring. Because there's a part in the video where he is kind of like scoping out the front door. He's probably like looking like, oh, is that a ring camera? I think it is. And he walks up and then does the
points
thing.
it straight at it.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely was trying to do it for the, he wanted the video. But why
do you think he didn't knock? Do you think it's because he didn't actually want to have somebody actually interact with him? But if he's got a ring, it's making a note or it's sending an audible sound to somebody. So you can't stick around too long. But I was thinking just now, do you think he'd be worried about leaving DNA on the door or something if he actually touched the door?
He wasn't wearing gloves.
He wasn't wearing gloves because I noticed it was some skinny little white dude, you know? So like, but I didn't even think about that when I first thought. I was like, oh, he just didn't want to do it because he knew somebody would come to the door. But maybe he's like, I don't want to leave any trace of my DNA on the door or something.
Maybe
get much. That's probably not. That's going way too deep. I think the dude just didn't want to have anybody actually come to the door. So he's like, let me get out of here. You know?
He was probably, it was probably one of those things where he was gonna knock and he's like thought better of it and just did the gesture like, and then said, oh, I gotta get out of here. This has gone too far.
Yeah. I mean, because if you want to really scare somebody, knock on the door, let them come to the door. You sit there with that thing. Don't say a damn word. That would be scary.
That would be
fucking.
Who would open the door to that though? I mean, like probably you.
Well, I would be armed, but then I probably would. But still, but I don't even know because there's legalities. You probably shouldn't open the door. If you have the right to not open the door, they would just use that against me if I shot them. They'd say, "Well, you opened the door to shoot them. Bad on you."
Right. Damn. And a goat mask is not a deadly weapon. So
so when you look at the mask didn't look like it was old. It looked like it was newish quality. So it looked like they just bought the thing. So I'm of the mind that was just somebody out trying to be a little crazy or whatever and having a good time. But
I mean, we talked about a couple weeks ago in a show that never got aired about the Yellow Man. Back in Ireland, of a guy just walking around in full like a rain gear.
But he went all over town, though, right?
Well, that's the thing. That's
what people said. They saw sightings of him all over town.
Right. So it
like this would be cool if that happened, because then you'd be like, oh, it's
right,
the Devil Man or whatever. You can't come up with a good name. You can't say the devil. To be like, no, it's that white dude with the devil mask.
Devil.
The door knocking devil.
I mean honestly, you wouldn't want to just be the door knocking devil. You want to be like the devil about town. So he shows up in parks at night, over bridges.
End of times. The end of times.
That's a great message. It's a timeless message. The end of time is timeless. Hopefully it's still early days. There hasn't been any extra news of devils appearing anywhere in Texas or anywhere else in the US. So that maybe the momentum's gone. Maybe, he's trying to start something and no one really took him up on it because they're like, there's too many people with guns. No, that kind of shit don't.
That shit in Texas ain't gonna fly for much. He's gonna have to do that in like Jersey or New York or something. New York City, like you're fine.
Maybe I don't know. We're still in the U.S. I feel like it's really a game of roulette. Of like, hopefully this person doesn't have guns. I don't know.
That would be their end of times for sure. If you go to the wrong door, doing that.
Oddnormal's What in the Weird is a production of KTLU in association with Rotten Baby Media. Due to an arcane curse given to us by our own door-to-door devil, the show is produced by me and Cold Coffee. The show is edited by yours truly on behalf of the machine gods who force us to do everything and nothing all the same. Full episodes are posted to YouTube and Spotify. If you'd like to support the show, convince the CIA to confirm that the chronomachy theory that I've been pushing for the last 5 years now is also real. And do the like and subscribe thing while you're at it. Yeah, that'd be great. We do have socials at Normal on Blue Sky, TikTok, and pretty much all the other ones. Most of all, thank you for listening. Live in wonder.
Oddnormal.